government officials insist the city has isolated the
Hello and welcome to MBW Live, the Movie Explorer. I'm Michael, and today we're talking about Avatar, The Way of Water, which came out in 2022. It's the sequel to, what was that? Oh yeah, Avatar, which came out in 2009, and is still to this day the highest grossing movie of all time. Yeah, it's just the sequel to that film. Today we're talking about it. And I do not have a exploration parody or a movie reaction yet. I'll get into more of that later, but let's get right into Avatar: The Way of Water. So this is a film that I'm a little biased, just because I'm a huge fan of the first Avatar and what that movie meant to me. But yeah, of course I had high expectations for the sequel. Not only because it's to Avatar, but because it's James Cameron. And what do we know about James Cameron? He's like the sequel king. I don't think there's anybody. There are filmmakers that have made, or even, not necessarily the same filmmaker, but there's sequels that have been made that are as good, if sometimes, rarely, better than the original. But I don't think there's any filmmaker out there who... Yeah, of course, it's a little bit subjective, but I think by and large, his sequels are at the very least as good as the original. I think in basically every case, though, they're better, or at least they try to top while still keeping, a baseline, the original. And I think, maybe it's not, if it goes in a different direction, like the Terminator versus Terminator 2, they're kind of different films. The Terminator is more of a horror sci-fi. Terminator 2 is like... an action sci-fi, not so much horror, although there are horror elements. So it's not quite the same film, but I think in terms of scope and everything that's put into it, the acting, whatever you can do to try to improve a sequel, that's all shoved into James Cameron's films. So yeah, it's a little subjective. You can like the previous film better, especially if it's a different kind of tone, but by and large, I think they're better. And every sequel he's ever done to his own film, he's done that. And that stays true with Avatar: The Way of Water. I thought it was better in every way than Avatar. Not to... I like Avatar in its own way, but I just like all of his other films. I think he topped it in every way that he could. And unlike those other ones, he's continuing the story. He's going to be doing his first threequel, if you want to call it that. I don't know what a better way to say that is, but and potentially 4-quill, 5-quill. So we'll see how that goes. That's kind of unprecedented territory for him, but I have faith. If anyone can do it, it's freaking James Cameron. And so I had high expectations, and they were met. They were surpassed, actually, because I think The Way of Water is a better film, not just because it tops everything, but there's more depth to the characters, there's more depth to the story. You care more about the characters, I think. And I think the focus of the story is generally just better, more satisfying. Maybe not... Again, I'm a little bit biased because I think you resonate with that film more if you have started your own family, because it's just different than, being in a family. Once you start your own, it just changes you to an extent. And a film like The Way of Water, where the focus is on the family and not, Jake's journey so much, but his family, it just changes the scope of it, and it makes a more powerful film. And I definitely, for example, the first one, besides my mind being blown, from what I was seeing and what cinema could achieve in terms of your experience, not just the art. Yeah, I was blown away, but I wouldn't say I got emotional in terms of like with the story. I got emotional and like, wow, I can't believe you can do this, and it got my brain churning in a way I never thought possible. But The Way of Water actually made me emotional. I saw it twice in theaters, once regular, once 3D. I recommend 3D. Unfortunately, we can't. It's not so much a thing anymore. But both times I saw it, it got me emotional, and I recently rewatched it because, of course, I did. And I got even more emotional than I did the first 2 times, and that's probably because, I don't know, maybe I have 2 kids now instead of 1. And I don't always allow, especially in public, myself to, just let it happen. Yeah, I've never fully let it happen, even recently, but since I started doing these reactions, because they just fit perfectly in doing this, I try not to suppress it like I normally would. I still do, because I'm just not going to let myself go, oh my God. I'm not going to fully, if I feel like that's going to happen, which is very rare, yeah, I'm not going to quite go there, but I might allow it to eke through a little bit more. So this is, just a personal intro of what I think about it. But I think it's pretty indisputable that it's just a better film, more depth. The visual effects, if you thought the first one was amazing, they're even better, to the point where, and they also got better at blending the elements together. There's literal shots, and I'm pretty sure they did it on purpose, close-up shots in The Way of Water, where, it's their hands cutting food or they're weaving something. It looks real. And obviously there's CG elements, and I don't even know if there are real. I'm assuming it's a blend. There's specifically, probably the best example is the one where they're first learning how to ride the, I apologize, even though I heard the name many times, since I watched it recently, I'm forgetting what the sea serpent things that they ride are that kind of fly. I know the flying ones are Ekron, but when they're like tying the, whatever that is, the rope to hold them, there's a close-up shot of that, and the water's like, churning, and it just looks real. Like, not even like, oh, that looks good. No, it looks real, which is like obviously the highest compliment you can give CGI. And that's a combination of elements, blending real with not real. So they just got really good at doing that. And those shots really help trick your brain to sell you what you're seeing, as being real. Aside from just everything else looking even better than it did before. And which is the main, like, I don't want to say point, because it's not like it doesn't have a heart. As I'm just saying, it does have a heart. It has more of a heart than the first movie. And there's meaning, there's themes, there's morals. It has all that. It's not hollow. Is it, a character study? No, not really. But it has more of those elements. But the main like sell you on it is, look at the world that I've built in CG, essentially. And then everything else is, fills out the rest of it. Which I'll say it about all of his films. His films are not just movies, they're not just films, which I think are different things. They're experiences. It's all 3 of those, and not many things can claim that. So, with my long-winded personal intro on it, let's dive into this and check in afterwards. When James Cameron returned to Pandora over a decade after Avatar reshaped blockbuster cinema, the world wondered, could he do it again? Could he redefine what was possible on screen and make us care about the Na'vi all over again? Avatar: The Way of Water is not just a visual spectacle, it's an evolution, a bold step forward in immersive storytelling. But what exactly makes this film special? Well, glad you asked. Let's dive into that, shall we? Aside from everything I already just said, James Cameron has always pushed the boundaries of filmmaking technology. With The Way of Water, he took photorealistic CGI to unprecedented heights. Using underwater motion capture for the first time in cinema history. Oh, that sounds like almost every film he does. That line, first time in cinema history, you can apply that to almost everything he's ever made, which is one of the greatest things about James Cameron. He's always pushing that envelope. Whether you think it's, artistic as Robert Eggers, whoever the new hotness is right now, all these films, yeah, they're great. They're artistic. A lot of merit in that. I love a lot of their stuff. That's not everything, though. Every ripple, every shimmer of light on the ocean surface, and every nuanced expression on a character's face was meticulously crafted. I would have to highly agree with that, because I wrote it, but also because it's true. The result, a film that doesn't just depict an alien world, it immerses you in it. Cameron's use of high frame rate was divisive, but it undeniably heightened the clarity and fluidity of action sequences, making Pandora feel more real than ever. Yeah, that had a role to play, but also just what you're seeing is amazingly done and detailed to a level that I don't think was achieved before that. Which really makes me wonder, you know what, it's probably not going to be as big of a jump, honestly, because they filmed them kind of back to back. They're still working on the edit and post-production side, but yeah, I would expect it not to be quite as big of a jump from Avatar to The Way of Water. So beyond its visual marvels, The Way of Water is a deeply personal story about family, survival, and the bonds we form. At its core, the sequel shifts focus from Jake Sully as a warrior to Jake Sully as a father. That it does. The Sully family dynamic filled with love, tension, and sacrifice grounds the spectacle in something profoundly human. Cameron also expands the themes of environmentalism, now weaving in the sanctity of marine life and its indigenous resistance against exploitation. As much as I love the film, and if you happen to watch the reaction to the film that I put out whenever that comes out, should be tomorrow, it is a little goofy in certain elements. I will freely admit that, as much of a fan I am of the film and all of its achievements and what it improved, there's some goofy elements to it. But I don't think it takes away, your enjoyment of it. One of the goofy... Okay, I'm lopping it into the goofy elements. There's more than this. It does have a purpose, but it's slightly goofy because it's just whales, He made alien whales. And what are we humans doing in the film? Of course, we're hunting them. We've moved on from unobtainium, and now we're hunting whales. Not just for their carcass, though. Whatever reason we'd hunt them here. We're not just trying to eat them or get their blubber or whatever. There's a secret goo in their brain that stops aging. Just completely stops it. And it's extremely valuable. So, of course, we need to hunt the crap out of them and just exterminate them without a care in the world. It is kind of funny because it's done for a purpose. This film has a clear environmentalist message that wasn't clear. There is a theme to it. It's not just hollow visual effects, which is a good message, but it doesn't mean it's not ripe for tearing apart and being kind of funny and goofy sometimes. Whales, point in fact, although he, I think, was successful in making you care about them, it's not like most people want whales to just get murdered for whatever reason. Dolphins, anything like that. Fish, they taste too good. We want to fry those up, but everything else we don't really want to get murdered on Earth. But the whales, the secret brain goo, I lost my train of thought there. My actual train of thought is the fact that this planet Pandora, in all its splendor, all its amazing glory, which it is, it's clearly better than Earth visually, and honestly, just in general. That planet has Awa, this magical, spiritual thing running all through it, where you can just connect your tail to it, and it's like a database, which is awesome. Clearly better than Earth. These humans go there, and they don't even care. Anything they're seeing, the beauty of the environment, these amazing creatures, bioluminescent forests. There's just, an Australian guy. Yeah, I got a quota to meet. Got to mine these whales and kill them, and I want their goo. It's like, I get it, but it's slightly goofy because it's like, that's all these people care about. They don't even take a second thought to look around. In saying that, he does plant that whale hunting guy. He has one line where he goes, "My God, they're beautiful," or something like that. It's a little bit goofy. And then his like sidekick, who's like from New Zealand, and funny enough, they gave him an American accent. He's a marine biologist. So apparently he's studying the Pandora creatures and doesn't care that they're being killed. Again, part of the message probably like, he's getting paid so much, he's selling out his soul or whatever. But he like, you know, he's just explaining things like, yeah, these whales, they're really smart. They're actually smarter than humans. They feel a lot. They have a spiritual connection. He's like saying all this stuff as they're like drilling into their brains. I just think it's funny because humans, we have a thing with intelligence. You know, the more intelligent something is, the more wrong it is to just kill them or eat them. And obviously humans, that's a no-go. Monkeys, we frown upon that, but I'm sure some people eat them. As you go down the line, and it becomes more okay. And then it kind of turns in on itself, and you get down to the smaller creatures like mice and insects, even though the lowest form, you know, it's crap or whatever. We kind of have a hierarchy but on Pandora, the creature that's smarter than us, more spiritual than us, has secret brain goo where they never die. Just kill them. Just mine them. Just suck their brains dry. They sucked his brains out. I just think it's just funny. Like, a creature that's more intelligent. And oh, lucky for them, this creature made a pact where they don't kill anybody. It's the Tukun way. They don't kill anybody. Yeah, that pact only works when everyone agrees to it. Wouldn't that be a great pact? God, everyone's just killing each other. What are we going to do? Let's agree not to do it. Yes! Problem solved. Well, apparently we're not smart enough as these whales to do that. Stuff like that is goofy. The fact that Colonel Miles Quaritch comes back is goofy. I love the character, though, so I forgive him for that. He makes the movie... Like, I love the lines he has. I love his acting. I love the character. So, like, it's goofy, but, you know, I like the character enough to accept it. It's really goofy, though, that they brought him back with... And they make an excuse like, well, they cloned his... They made an avatar body. They took his mind from a thing, because apparently they can do that. They can just scan your brain and have your consciousness in a data drive like Altered Carbon or something. And create an avatar body for you and make a new you as an avatar. I mentioned this in the first one, but this technology is like way better than this brain goo they're getting. They can implant a clone of you in an avatar body. That is way better than anything they have else going on, and nobody even bats an eye. Like, yeah, of course we can do that. Let's get this brain goo instead. Like, all of this is goofy. Again, coming from someone who loves the film. So he's back. He's great though. So again, I accept it. Spider, the character of the human who's living with the Na'vi. They have a good reason for it. He happens to be Colonel Miles Quaritch's son. Slightly goofy. Where's the mom? Did she die? It's never really explained. Did she leave the baby there? That's pretty unlikely for most mothers, I would assume. You know, if they're like, well, you can't take the kid, she'd probably stay there. She wouldn't just be like, oh, okay. See you later, Miles. Spider Boy. Don't worry, your dead Colonel Dad has an avatar that's gonna come alive. Goofy. Why is that character in there? Well, to help bridge the human gap, because humans are portrayed as pure evil in the sequel, which Cameron has mentioned that that's not going to be the case going forward, or not so much. It will be the case because they're the enemy in the movies, but there's going to be, you know, less of an emphasis, like humans bad, Na'vi good. There's going to be bad Na'vi and probably some more good humans. Spider is just a small, you know, branch of that. Not to mention, and more of a human connection with all these Na'vi, that because Jake Sully's no longer human. But and just it helps with the theme playing into that. But what else is goofy? There's a couple other things. Those are the three main ones, though. Again, I love the film, but I will not say that there's nothing goofy about it. So, one of Cameron's greatest strengths is world building. It is the first film introduced. If the first film introduced us to Pandora's forests, the wave water plunges us into its oceans, which I know Cameron could not wait to do. Vibrant, full of life, and more intricate than we could have imagined. And surprisingly not super alien compared to Earth's oceans. It doesn't really need to be. If you've ever Obviously, you can always just watch, you know, footage people shot underwater. But if you've ever done it yourself, it really does feel like another planet when you're underwater. It can be scary. It's beautiful, you know, much like the scenes in The Way of Water. There's a bunch of scenes, you know, the characters just marveling underwater. It is like that on Earth. You know, it's not actually much different from Pandora's oceans because it doesn't need to be. And Cameron is clearly, that's his life, you know, other than filmmaking. The Metkayina's connection to the sea, their customs, and their bond with the Tukun, the whales, intelligent whale-like creatures, expand Pandora's mythology in breathtaking ways. This isn't just a spectacle for the sake of spectacle. It's a lived-in world, one that feels as real as our own. And there's clear reason for that. Like, it's purposely not that much different from Earth. And I wouldn't even say that was done like as in a lazy way. It's done so people can connect with it and believe it more. Cameron even says as much in one of the interviews where there's a reason they didn't make the forest red, you know. It's green like Earth, and then at night it kind of turns into another environment, which was perfect way to do it. Avatar: The Way of Water isn't just a movie. It's an experience. It proves that in an era dominated by sequels and franchises, originality and execution still matters. While some critics argue about its familiar storytelling structure, few can deny the sheer ambition and technical mastery on display. More importantly, it's a reminder that cinema is meant to transport us, to make us believe in the impossible. And as Cameron continues to craft this saga, one thing is certain: the journey through Pandora is far from over. If the studios had their way, this thing would never be over. This is the best money-making factory they could ever have, literally. So the studios are like, yeah, do whatever you want, man. Just do it. Just keep making them. Unfortunately, I think there may be a break after Avatar 5. I don't think we'll ever stop having Avatar movies until one nosedives. I don't wish that upon it, though, at least until Cameron's alive. Once he dies, whoever takes over, their movie can bomb. Because as far as I would be concerned, Avatar is going to die with James Cameron. So if he's making 4 and he croaks out, I'm sorry. I don't even think somebody should take over. They should just release the film as this is what was done before he died. I don't think anybody should touch that franchise. And if they do, to me, it's dead. He is Avatar. Look at me. Look at me. I'm Avatar. I always have been. He's not Avatar now. He's always been Avatar. So, it expands Pandora, The Way of Water, has a deeper story, and we don't quite know what the future holds for the franchise. We know Fire and Ash is the title for the third one. We know a little bit about there's going to be a new type of Na'vi introduced who are not quite as pure as the ones we know. But we don't know exactly what's going to happen. I have heard rumors that they're going to go to Earth at some point, which I actually would love for many reasons. But the hold on, I think I'll circle back to this. So in terms of box office, it's at it's over 2 billion. I think it's like 2.3 billion or something like that. So it's one of the highest grossing movies of all time. As I've said before, what's the highest grossing of all time? Avatar, almost 3 billion, 2.9 something. What's number 2? Avengers Endgame. What's number 3? The Way of Water. It's insane. Yeah, it didn't top the first one, but nobody should expect that because that's just insane. And I don't think it's possible because when Avatar came out, nothing else was like that. So it literally shattered everything, all expectations, people's brains, box office. So to have the sequel to that do that again, I just thought was impossible. But the fact that it is number 3, I don't think you could. The only better thing you could have is be number 2. Unfortunately, Avengers Endgame didn't make that possible. But it deserves it, honestly, because that was the death of the Marvel universe. Now it's dead, and they're just kind of flopping around trying to get something to stick. That series is dead, as far as I'm concerned. I've never been a big comic book guy, but I was a big fan of that. Watched every film in theaters when it came out. Was very hyped for Endgame, even the one Infinity War. I loved them. I thought it was great. You know, they capped it off really well, entertaining, and it was a global sensation, just like Avatar. So, if any film did it, that one's okay with me. But also, the unique thing is, The Way of Water and Avatar, they both beat Titanic, which... Who made that? Oh yeah, James Cameron, which was the previous highest grossing before Avatar. So that's still amazing that it beat that. And again, unprecedented. Nobody else has done that, and probably won't for a long time, if ever, at this point. And there definitely was skepticism about whether audiences would return after 13 years, but they sure did. And that really staked his claim on that title, and studios had hard eyes all over the world, and they wish they could just have James Cameron's working for them. I don't understand how somebody does that. I really don't. I think that's a lot of reason why other filmmakers and critics, especially, not so much cinephiles because they don't have a stake in that game, but I think people are just jealous of that, honestly, like because they look at the story and they're like, it's Pocahontas, it's Dances with Wolves in Space, and it's just a sequel to that. Now he's got a family, and what is that guy's name? Dunbar from Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner's character. You know, people just make that connection and they just can't get past that. And why does that not matter? Well, if you watch my previous live stream or listen to it, I give you 6 reasons why that doesn't matter. In The Way of Water, I think distances itself from that while introducing some more goofy things, like the whales, and the structure is a little bit different because it's not this like human, you know, living with the tribal people and he becomes one of them and he fights against the humans. Exactly what happens in Dances with Wolves. And the sequel, he's already there, you know. He's essentially not human. He has a family. It's just a little bit different. So slightly distancing itself from that. But you know, when people say Pocahontas and Ferngully, I've said that oh yeah, it's great. I'd rather watch Avatar. I don't care that it's similar to those. Like, in my mind, those movies copy from Avatar at this point, even though that's obviously not true. Just in scope, in terms of how I feel about watching those. I think I prefer Ferngully over Pocahontas, but can't say that about Dances with Wolves. That's just an amazing film. Amazing Western, amazing... I don't know. It's one of Costner's best films, I think. And the fact that he made it is pretty crazy. It's just a sidebar a little bit. I think his performance is like more sidebarring, kind of underrated. I think he's great in it. You know, his character is muted. Okay, enough about Dances with... We're gonna get into that on another live stream, who God knows when, but I do think he's underrated in that film. He does have his I can't stop talking about it now. Kevin Costner. He has his Kevin Costner ways, where he brings that to, you know, more movies than I would like. Like, I think he can do better in a lot of his films. But he also kills certain roles, and to me, Dances with Wolves is one of them. Even Waterworld. I like Waterworld. I think it was just bad luck that it was a bomb. Not the greatest film ever, but I like it. If anything, for the world building, if nothing else. Because it does kind of meander and just... I don't know. The structure of it isn't super grabbing. It's more of the world, like, hey, the world is covered in water. This is interesting. I haven't watched Yellowstone. This is a huge sidebar, but I can't stop. I never watched Yellowstone, and of course I've heard it's amazing. I'm sure he's great in it. Hatfield and McCoy's, I thought he was great. Devil Ands, I think that's who he played. Great. I love that show. Okay, enough sidebarring. Back to The Way of Water. What is the... Oh, Horizon, his newest thing. I actually started watching that. Halfway into it, I could totally see the criticism. To me, that film... I haven't finished it yet because I had to stop. But to me, that film is just like, hey, you want to be transported to the West in the 1800s? Watch this film. But it's not really going to give you any story to follow. You're just watching these people live their lives. Almost like a documentary that's more filmic. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think in that regard, it's epic. But I will say the story is like non-existent. There are stories, but it's like, it's just not traditional. It's not Dances with Wolves. Oh, God. Apologize for the burps. At this point, it's tradition for me to have a beer while I do this. So, this Kevin Costner sidebar really threw me off. If you're just joining me now, this is not about Dances with Wolves or Kevin Costner. It's about The Way of Water. But this is, this is how my brain works, and I love movies, so I just happen to go into different topics, and I get distracted. Now I'm burning time because I just ruined everything, didn't I? All right, well, performance-wise, or you know what? Before that, awards. Nominated for 4. I think they kind of shat on him that year. I think it deserved more than it was nominated for. Even more than the original Avatar. And it got less. It only won one, which it was the one to win for that film. Best Visual Effects. If something else would have won that, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe rioted with by myself. But I would have had a CGI background in honor of The Way of Water. No film. You know what? Every time a new one comes out, if it doesn't win, something's up with that. I don't think any other film deserves it. I don't care what the situation is. I can say that in advance. And for the simple fact that he freaking, with his team, whoever they are, pioneered this stuff, motion capture, and the level that it's at now. It was nominated for Best Sound. That's a... sorry, sound guys, but nobody cares about that. Best Motion Picture of the Year. Okay, that's a good one. Wasn't going to win, of course. Best Achievement in Production Design. How does that even work when everything is CGI? That is a weird thing. They need a CGI category, I think. You know what? I take that back. People do care about sound. They just don't care who does it. Nobody's like, oh yeah, Julian Fanon, he's the best sound mixer. Like nobody, they're just like, hey, this is good. Surround sound's good. Yes, that is why I corrected this. People do love sound. Again, they just don't care who does it, except for other sound guys. I too love sound. I love music. I would say I'm a musician, but I don't practice it. I just know how to play the drums and guitar. More so drums. But I appreciate you for chiming in. Again, I quickly corrected that because I was trying to be a little too cheeky, I guess. People do care about sound. It's highly important. Do they care who does it? I don't know. They just want it to be good. This is a good mix. Surround sound's good. All right, moving on. It's unfortunate because everyone who works on a movie is important, but it's just what it is. Other filmmakers and other sound people, that's it. But you could say the same thing about so many categories, unfortunately. Actors get all the glory. Writers and directors, probably directors next, writers after that. Producers like to think like, hey, I produced that film. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because what does that even mean? What did you... They can be creative, but they're more so the back end. So it's hard to connect like, hey, they produced this, so it's good. It's just one of those things. But it is kind of funny when I think producers like don't understand that. Like they think people care more than they actually do. Film people care because they have to. And but the public, the audience, no, they don't care about who produced it. They will recognize a name. So let's say Ridley Scott executive produced something. Brad Pitt executive produced something. They'll see that and be like, oh, wow, he executive produced it. They don't even know what that means, but they'll recognize that. But if it's Brad Foley, what the heck does that mean to anybody? They do not care. I think John Landau, rest in peace, producer of Avatar. I know that, but I'm not just anybody. I'm pretty important here. No, but I do consider myself a filmmaker. All you got to do to be a filmmaker is make a film. So it's not a high bar. Just go film something. You're a filmmaker. I know who he is. But again, I'm not the general public in terms of, it's my day off, I'm going to go see a movie. So I know certain producers, but again, I'm not speaking about myself and others like me. I'm talking about the general public. Here's a good example. John Landau, rest in peace. Avatar 3, it's basically in the bag already. Will that have an impact on 4 and 5? The fact that he's no longer one of the producers? Because he isn't in the interviews and some of the press and stuff. So will that have an impact? I don't know. How do you quantify that? Probably not. Although I'm sure he was a good partner to Cameron, because he, after starting with Titanic, kept working with him. Interesting, I think his Okay, here's a little sidebar. Gale Ann Hurd, Cameron's producing partner all the way up until Titanic, which John Landau took over. See, I know these things because I do care about it. Again, not talking about me. He produced Titanic and everything else Cameron did after that. Avatar, chiefly. I think you could say that Cameron's filmography and tone changed a little bit from Titanic and on. He went back to sci-fi, obviously. Titanic was a huge sidebar for him. Although if you really have watched, especially, back to back, like I have these past couple weeks, you definitely see his style, although it is much different in Titanic. But I would say that it changed. Producer changed. Was no longer Gale Ann Hurd, it was John Landau. Maybe it does have a bigger impact than I'm realizing. Certainly in terms of the pull of the producer, their connections and resources, that will make a big difference. Maybe he had way more than Gale Ann Hurd. Maybe he's better at managing things. I don't know. I'd say anybody involved in the production of a huge movie like Titanic and Avatar, they know their shit. They're the best of the best. So we lost one of the best ones. Oh wait, let's look at the Golden Globes, because I don't even know. Nominated for 2, Best Motion Picture and Best Director. That's it. They don't even have a visual effects at the Golden Globes. I didn't even notice that. I don't watch those anymore, by the way. Past couple years, I have not watched the Globes or the Oscars. Do not care. But I will see, like, oh, this film was nominated. This film won. Is that a huge weight to me? No, it's not. But if I see that they're shunning something, it does bother me. So I guess it does matter to me a little bit. But if something doesn't win, I'm not like, oh, I knew it. It's trash. They didn't nominate it. Best Director. Speaking of that, he should have absolutely been nominated for The Way of Water. Just in terms of making that movie alone, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to be skilled. You have to realize you're shooting people in a warehouse that look goofy in outfits with dots over their face and a camera right here. And you're directing that. You have to have a major vision for that. Not every director can do it. And this 3-hour epic story I wanted to be a fly on the wall. I want to somehow hack into what Cameron does and be a fly on the wall and see what the heck is going on. I wouldn't say be a PA, because I won't be standing on set as a PA. I'd be, get coffee, go hold up that tail over there, I won't actually be able to experience it. Very off topic, but I got a screen use prop of an ampule from Prometheus. I just knew you'd appreciate it. I love it. How did you get that? How did you get that? Tell me right now and send it to me. I want one of those. And yes, you are right. I do love that. Prometheus. You want me to get another sidebar on Prometheus? If you go on my channel right now, you'll see a 40-minute video of me talking about Prometheus. And speaking of that, I'm not done with Prometheus. I'm going to be doing a live stream on Prometheus, just like I'm doing with The Way of Water. I don't know when, but it'll be on my channel. I love that movie. Okay, I'm going to hold back here because I could go on the rest of the videos Prometheus. I'm not going to do that, obviously. I love that film. And you say you have a screen use prop. Okay, you just blew my mind right now. A screen use prop of ampule from Prometheus. If you're still here, tell me how you did that, or how you got it, and how I can get one. And yes, I haven't kept up with the awards for many years, for many reasons. I bought it off a guy in Facebook group for prop collectors. There are actually a lot of the ampules around. They had a ton of them for shooting. Well, that is awesome. I have not seen that. I would want one. I have, well, first of all, do you know it's legit? Is there any proof? Not taking away, how cool it could be, but do you know it's legit? Shit. All right, look at this. Screen used face hunger. Screen used face hugger. They shrunk it like a shrunken head. This is my ampule. No, this is my wife loves me. She gifted me this. This is my prized possession. I would love that same thing of Prometheus though, so okay. If you have anything else to say, please do, but this is majorly got me off track here. Dang it. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to get into something else here. Mr. Cameron on The Way of Water. And thank you for joining me, by the way, Falls.
First Avatar film in 2009, we all connected with it, obviously the highest grossing film of all time, but there was a very deep connection people had to it, something you called the tertiary level.
Yeah, okay, so you've done your research, that's great, yeah.
What did you experience on a tertiary level that made you want to continue the story and dedicate 10 years of your life to?
Well, I felt that the unequivocal success of the movie was some...
If you've noticed something is different with how they're talking, yes, there is something different. Just to try to keep things from going south. It's a little bit sped up because I heard that can help with stuff. So, but that's actually good. They can get through what they're saying quicker. It's authenticated from 20th Century Fox. It was auctioned off for charity after filming. There are 3 different versions: small, medium, large. They are just painted foam. Well, congratulations, because that is awesome. That is something I would love. I would love. There's a bunch of things I would love. I'd love that if they made like a head. It could be a foam head of the engineer that blows up the head. That would be awesome. I'd love one of the vases and what you have. There are a few hero versions that are ceramic with David when David was holding it. Mine's background one. Well, again, that is awesome. Congratulations on that find.
kind of subconscious connection that people were making around the world, and it actually gave me hope. There was a message that was, thematically it was about the environment, about nature, about our connection to nature that we all feel, even though we live in this kind of state of nature deficit disorder, which we all do, or most of us do, unless you're still, on a farm or you get to be a forest ranger or some damn thing like that, But I thought that, okay, so we have evidence now from the success of this film that people want to connect. They feel some kind of subconscious connection to these ideas and these images. All right, now, how do we do that again? And how do we build on that? And we literally wrote a whole script that I wasn't happy with. I didn't think it did it. And we chucked it out. It was about a year's work. We chucked it out and started over because I wanted that subconscious connection that's almost dreamlike, right? And I wanted to awaken that, you know, kind of sense memory of maybe in this film of being in water or underwater, or that yearning that we have to see a primeval world like that. Because, you know, there was a time when human beings lived in a primeval world, and they were relatively happy for hundreds of thousands of years, and then they invented our modern civilization, and things kind of went a little bit pear-shaped, right? So it's meant to be kind of a reminder of the stuff that's deeply coded inside us. And I'd like to hope that we accomplish that again in a different way, so it's new, it's fresh, it's a new story, new challenges, all that sort of
I
thing.
feel like in a sense you're a Metcalfe yourself.
Well,
with all your
maybe. Well, I do like the water. I
Yeah.
do like being underwater,
Yeah.
sure.
So
So there's
speaking-
a reverence, right? There's a
Right.
reverence for the ocean. There's a reverence.
I do like being underwater, that's for sure. Oh, do you, James Cameron? That is a big understatement. I just like it. No, you love it. You want to live in the water. Don't get it twisted, man. We all know the truth. There's one on eBay now, currently, I believe. But yeah, if you Google Prometheus props, you can find some random stuff. Sorry for off topic. Back to Cameron. Hey, keep it coming, man. You can always interrupt with Prometheus. You should know that. There's an endless discussion to be had about Prometheus, which is one of the many great things about that film. In the midst of all the flaws with it, but the good outweighs the bad in my mind, and also creates a huge disappointment of what that film could have been.
Or what the Na'vi call the great balance. For me, it's just the awe and wonder of what's really there. What I call it nature's imagination.
Wow. So speaking of that technology in that modern world that you talked about, I think when people talk about your films, they always say James Cameron waited for the technology to catch up to his vision. That's something we hear over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But for you, what was
He also
something
pioneered
that
it
you weren't
to
able to do in 2009 because
achieve what
the
he
technology
wanted,
didn't exist or
or
you hadn't
helped
created it yet,
pioneer.
that gave you particular joy to be able to bring to this film?
Yeah, the difference for the new film was that previously I was just waiting for the rising tide to lift all ships together so that then we could come in and we could build on top of it to create what we needed for the first Avatar. And it was all very prototypical and so on. The whole movie was a prototype. But we learned from that, and then when we set down the path of doing these new sequels, we actually, you know, in a very focused way, built the new tools that we needed. We didn't wait. We didn't wait for the industry at large to do it for us. We knew what we needed, and we went after it. And a big focus was how do we create literally a perfect translation of what the actors are doing into their characters. Their characters aren't human. Their bodies are different. Their faces are different. How do we make sure that what the actor does gets there 100% with no loss whatsoever? And then a lot of money and a lot of time.
I think with that, speaking of the Academy Awards that I don't think are relevant anymore and don't care about, when it comes to people's performances, notorious since motion capture has been a thing, you know, Andy Serkis, ding ding ding, for just looking the other way for that, which is that's criminal, honestly. If they're not going to make another category, they need to seriously consider motion capture performances. If they need the evidence, I'm sure the people that made it can provide it. Hey, this is what he did performance-wise. This is what the final product is. God, Andy Serkis. The first 3 ape films, by the way, especially the third one, I love those. I didn't see the fourth one yet, Kingdom or whatever it is. Kingdom of Planet of the Apes. And I love Andy Serkis, but the performance is another thing, or even better in the way of water. And I really, again, if you watch the reaction when I put that out, for me, I bear it all because I'm not a sensitive emotional guy. It got me multiple times. But I also felt like the weight of their performances through the CGI. I could tell that it was, or I felt that it was real. You know, not just like an animated thing was done a certain way. It felt to me like a real person emoting with a cover on them, like a Snapchat filter almost. And if you look at side by sides, you can even see the proof of that. But I think, especially with the first one, the fact that there's a layer of CGI, I think their performances aren't appreciated because, granted, there is trickery that could be involved. For example, the CG characters emoting, you could just animate a tear when the actor really didn't have one. Stuff like that. You can manipulate it. Which is why if they need proof, I think they should have the proof truly judge a performance, but I just felt the performances. I thought they were really good. Zoe Saldana, Sam Worthington, the kid actors, Stephen Lang, all of them. I thought they were really great, and especially, honestly, Zoe Saldana. I think she loses it at one point, kind of goes into a rage. She emotes about the forest, of course, her kids, and I just feel like you could feel the pain through the CG, and it felt like you were actually experiencing a human, not a CG, falsity or whatever.
Into that, and I think we've accomplished that, because when you see, whether it's Sam, Zoe, Sigourney, Kate Winslet, you feel them even when they're not talking. You feel what they're feeling, what they're thinking. It's all there, 100%. And so we're very happy with that, and now that's the base from which we can move forward through these other films, if we get to make the other film.
I need to rewatch Way of Water. I watched it in IMAX, and I haven't seen it since. I did remember it making me emotional, which I rarely ever do. Right there with you. I didn't get a chance to see IMAX, unfortunately, but I did see it in 3D, which was even better because it really aids in the experience and what you're visually seeing. It really helps take you there. 3D doesn't always do that. Sometimes it's just a gimmick, but with the Avatar films, even the first one, it really helps bring you there. And unfortunately, that's not really a thing anymore. Even, it'll rarely come out in a theater, but it just doesn't feel the same in terms of, how they were presenting it. And then unless you happen to still have a 3D TV, which you can't even get new movies, so you're stuck with what they had at the time, you're just out of luck. But 3D is definitely the way to go. I wish I would have seen it in IMAX too. Actually, the first time I watched it, the theater was messed up and it was literally blurry. The first time I watched it, I thought it was amazing, and the screen was blurry. I could recognize, it looks like the little focus thing was just notched one click the other way, like we're slightly off focus the whole movie, and I still thought it was amazing. And I know that because when I saw it in 3D, and obviously since then, it wasn't like that. So the theater I first watched it in was just messed up. But yeah, it was. I've gotten emotional the 3 times I've seen it, and not every film can do that. That's just the sign of an effective film. If you can do that consistently, I mean, how does that not mean it's not an effective film in terms of character and story and all that? Yeah, that's also, if you can forget that you're sitting in a theater and you're just along for the ride, that is also exactly what you want. And obviously, if you got to pee, that's going to take you out of it a little bit. But if you're like, dang it, I got to pee, and you don't want to leave, yeah, that's exactly what you want. You don't want to say, you don't want to speak in absolutes, but I don't think there's an experience like seeing one of those films. Part of the key, though, is you gotta just take it for what it is. Just accept it. All the negative stuff, all the things saying, it's just blue aliens, it's Fern Gully, just tune out all of that, if that even affects you. The people saying it's, just take the movie for what it is, Try to not think about what you're doing after, and if you do all that, I think it really takes you there, so to speak. Yeah, before I recently rewatched it for the movie reaction, I hadn't seen it since I saw it in theaters, and I wouldn't even say it looked better when I saw it in theaters, honestly. There isn't really a great streaming copy of it, but and I don't have it on Blu-ray. Unfortunately, I should have got it on 4K Blu-ray. I still felt the same, honestly, as I did in the theater, and it's different in a reaction video because I'm talking most of the time, or a good amount of the time. Obviously, I'm not doing that in a theater. I hate people that do that, but a reaction video is different. And it still took me there. without hesitation. I wasn't forcing anything. It was just like, okay, well, this is very effective, like I thought it was. So I wouldn't say you're missing anything, but do your best to mimic that, you know. Turn the lights off, don't have distractions, and it should suck you right in. Suck. Tractor beam, suck me right in. Zzz. Dumb and Dumber. I'll be talking about that God knows when. Again, I throw out all these names. I have no idea when I'm going to be talking about it, but I will. Thought the underwater scenes were amazing, especially considering the actors the CGI was put over were really swimming. Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the benefits to actually filming them underwater with motion capture suits, because you just can't mimic that no matter what you do to the same extent if you film it in real life and then capture the data and animate over that, which not everyone would do, which is one of the keys to Cameron. Is he does things that most filmmakers or studios would just be like, yeah, we're not going to do that. You want to actually film underwater? No, we're not going to do that. Just put up a green screen, throw some water on their face. He does things like that, and most people don't. Makes a difference. Having a way of water in the bathroom. Yeah. I think actually one of the times I had to go really bad. Maybe the second time. Or maybe the 3 times I saw Avatar. One of the times I watched that franchise, I know it happened to me. And I had the way water in my eyes every time I watched it.
It's interesting because you do experience it on that level. People talked about the first Avatar, how it was groundbreaking. They'd never seen anything like it. I felt that watching this again. I felt like I'd seen something I'd never seen before.
That's good. That was our goal.
Because you are always thinking forward. Is there a piece of technology that you're now working on for the future, whether it be a future Avatar film or something you hope exists in the future, that maybe whether it be Avatar or another film that you would...
I don't think there's anything that we need that we don't have now. We gave ourselves all the hard problems in this movie, water being the hardest problem, but water, fire, everything, the emotional stuff. So we gave ourselves all the hard problems on purpose so that we now don't have, so now the cadence of the films can be shorter. Like we plan to drop the next one in 2 years, and then after that another couple of years, 2 or 3 years. You see what I mean? So we don't have to create it all from scratch anymore. Where my focus is to promote better exhibition, right? So the 3D is great, but not all 3D theaters are bright enough for my standard. You know, you got to see it in a nice bright theater, but they're not all bright enough. And
you know what he should do? He should do what California Adventure does with that soaring ride, where they spray like the scent. That's the only thing it's missing. You need to smell Pandora.
You know, some people don't like 3D because the theatrical technology has lagged behind what we can do. You know, you saw it in its most pristine form. So yeah, my emphasis is on getting kind of the infrastructure out there up to the level that it can be.
Where do you see 13 years since the last film? If you jump forward 13 years from now, how do you think we're going to be experiencing movies?
I think it'll be fairly similar to what it is.
Do I think the process of speeding up the release dates will hold true? Well, barring anything bad happening, and actually John Landau dying, unfortunately, that could cause an issue, potentially, or some kind of delay. I don't think there's going to be a delay for Avatar 3. I think that's going to come out, I think, December of this year. That's when it's scheduled. I don't see that getting delayed. In terms of 4 and 5, I think that's the current release dates are pretty out there. Like he says, like, oh, the cadence is sped up, but when it comes to 4 and 5, I don't think so. I think 5 isn't coming out until 2031. That seems like every 3 years, when if it was speeding up, it should be 2, 1.5, 1. But yeah, barring any problems, I don't. And I know they're like, oh, 4 and 5. I'm not sure. I don't know why I wouldn't be sure. Like what? Especially if they're becoming more efficient in creating it, you know, which should mean cost less money to do the same thing. Again, like the studio would be like, Avatar 10? Yeah, we're there, buddy. We're going to keep doing it until 2100. And I don't see them wanting to stop, so I'm pretty sure 4 and 5 are going to happen. But there is the question of whether Cameron will be doing it. Understandably, if you think about it, especially with when he came up with the idea and initially wrote the script, which was like 1994 or 95, 96, I don't remember. Terrible short-term memory. because I just learned that information a couple weeks ago. Huge chunk of time out of his life, over 30 years now, and still going. So who else has dedicated that long to something they made? You know, I don't know. I wouldn't hold it against him. I would hold it against him, but I would understand why he just stopped. You know, I want to do something else. 30 years of my life is enough of this dang franchise. So I don't see why the timeline would not be true unless somebody else dies, which, knock on wood.
Now, I mean, there's
Very long-winded answer to what your question was. Sorry.
something, you know, my biggest challenges on this film were not technological. They were dramatic. They were narrative. You know, what are we trying to say? What's the story that we're trying to tell? Because people are mostly interested in story. Then when they go to see a movie, they don't want to know like what kind of camera was used, really. You know, they just want, like, do I care about this character?
Actually, I want to know what
is it
camera
funny?
you
Is it
used for
dramatic?
this.
Does it make me cry? Does it make me feel something? Right? So that storytelling challenge will always
was
be
it a
there.
red? Was it
And
a,
if the medium
what was
changes, it doesn't really matter. You know, the big question right now is the to be or not to be question. Does the theatrical experience mean enough to human civilization to keep it alive in a time of rapid access to content? You know, it's like a fire hose coming at you, right?
Yes, it does. And one way to make sure of that is you keep it alive. Because if you don't, people like the easiest route. So streaming is that. But if you keep it an experience, if you keep it an event, which luckily the Avatar franchise is theatrical first, in my mind. The Avatar series, everything it's gone through, the amount of time, what it's achieved, what it's pushed forward, that is not just streaming content, okay? There is a lot of stuff that is made just as content, which in my mind is the death of creativity. I understand why people do it, and you got to make money, but yeah, it has to be kept alive, because people will take the easiest route, and then maybe they'll miss what they gave up. But people just got to keep it alive. They got to go to movies. That's really up to the public, as much as people want to keep it alive in the industry and stuff. I think it'll always be, you can't replace that with streaming, you know? It's just, no matter how, you know, you could play it at a party, it's still not the same as a theater where you just go with random people. I was just wondering what camera you used for the face cam. I use James Cameron's camera. No, I don't. I use a little camera called a Sony FX3. Great camera, jack of all trades in my mind. For the money, you can't really get much better. It doesn't do everything as good as certain cameras, but it does everything well. And what it is still the king of is low light. But I've seen, I just think it's really well rounded. Certain cameras have a look, like a Red and Alexa. They have looks that are really hard to mimic, but they can't necessarily like mimic other cameras. Not that you would want to, because those are kind of the paramounts. But I think what I've noticed with an FX3 is it can get close to most cameras. It's just very well rounded. Like, you can make it look similar to an Alexa. You can make it look similar to a Red. And it's affordable for them. I mean, it's expensive, but it's, for what it gives you, it's pretty affordable. And I've loved it. I haven't had a reason to get anything else or want anything else. Of course, I always want a Red. I always want Alexa, you know. It's just because they give you looks you can't quite get unless you have that camera. And certain advantages. Like Red has a look that it's really hard to... It just has its own look, which I love. But, you know, just like those cameras don't excel at everything, pros and cons. I think for the most part, I love the FX3. Avatar has been in the sky, on land, underwater. What's left? Underground, space. Where does he take this story? Well, it's the subtitle, the new one's Fire and Ash. There's apparently the Fire Tribe or something. Do they live on lava rock? I don't know. But I have heard that there's going to be some element on Earth at some point if it makes it that far. I don't know if that's going to happen in 3 at all, but I've heard 4 and 5 something to do with Earth, which I think is like that's inevitable if you look at the story. Like how many times can they beat the humans, and then the base of the humans is Earth. So if you keep beating them off Pandora, they can always just keep coming back with more and more and more. So in my mind, there has to be some, maybe they bring them to Earth and they negotiate, or like it's inevitable that Earth is gonna come into play. Yeah, Pandora has literally every environment Earth has, and probably more. So everything you can think of, it's got it. But yeah, the creator was shot mostly on an FX3. That's the prime example of a Hollywood movie. Not even just a Hollywood movie, a big, sci-fi. I mean, it's not a gigantic budget, but a big sci-fi that was released. And yeah, I actually haven't seen the creator. But from the images I've seen, the little clips, it looks really good. What I would expect from an FX3. I know there's always a part of you, unless you have access to all these cameras, that you kind of want what you don't have. So I won't say like FX3, I don't care about anything else. Like, of course, I want a Red, I want an Alexa. Can't afford them, except maybe a Komodo, but I'm also happy to be stuck with this camera.
As all these different streamers are spending so much money to create so much interesting content. Good.
I just registered what you said. Yeah, Bionicles. I had some of those as a kid. I completely forgot about those. Yeah, there was like different environments of those.
Actors and good writing and all that, but can that sustain itself? I think we're seeing the signs that it can't, not at the level that it is right now. And we see people coming back to the theater because they want that, whether it's the communal experience. I think of it more as the experience where you make a deal with yourself to not pick up the remote for 3 hours. Yeah. That's really what it is. Yeah. It's I'm just going to focus on that and let it, bathe me in this story and in these people. And you don't do that.
I get it. Happens to me too, and a lot of times it's inevitable. Your dogs are barking at something, your kids are whatever. Like, if you go to a theater, it's just kind of, you're paying to be there. You're in a dark room with a bunch of people you don't know, usually. It's just, you have to be on better behavior, you have to pay attention more. And the fact that you're paying, you have a stake in it because you're paying to be there for that. All that stuff helps I think properly experience of a movie. Because like I said, I'm, love movies. I'm a filmmaker. I'm guilty of it too. I pause movies all the time. I don't finish them because life gets in the way. Like, it just happens. So I can't fault anyone for that.
It's just a fundamentally different experience. You pause it, you go make a phone call or order pizza or text somebody, or, it's a divided attention, or you watch it in bits.
I just asked Kate, 25 years since Titanic, to reflect on you as a filmmaker, how you've evolved. When you look back on that experience now, having so much distance from it, are you able to watch it how do you see it looking back? And what is it about you? Because both films, you're an epic filmmaker. What quality do you think you have that allows you to be an epic filmmaker?
Well, look, I'm an artist, right? So I think in kind of these moving paintings, if you will. I love production value. I love spectacle, physical spectacle, whether it's done virtually or whether it's done with physical sets. But I think that's necessary but not sufficient, right? I think what you also need is a deep concern for the characters.
I think what we need to do here, much like the Tukun, is hunt James Cameron and drill his brain goo, because that's the secret sauce. That's the true answer. I don't think he can quantify what makes him him. I can't even tell you. I don't know. I don't know. Someone does a one-off thing, most successful movie of all time, but everything else they did was mediocre. No, not the case with him. Not the case with him. Why is that? I don't know. Most filmmakers, you know, they get progressively worse, or they have, you know, they kind of stagnate, and then maybe they go up and down, and they come back years later with something great. They don't have the trajectory that he has. It's he's got a brain that needs to be studied. I'm first in line. I definitely will check out the creator, and think it's lacking some story elements. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. The cinematography looked great. The little sci-fi bits I saw looked really good. Definitely curious about it, and it's my first. It would be my first time watching, so maybe I'll film that, since I'm doing this little reaction series. Which, granted, I'm never been a fan of that, but I just think it goes good with what I'm doing here, and I just do it different. You know, I don't have this stupid face that all those guys do first time watching everything they see. I just think there's a disconnect when a lot of those people that do it. I just give my natural reaction that's not over the top from my own perspective. But also, again, I consider myself a filmmaker, so it's not just some guy watching a movie. It's a little bit different perspective, I guess. And I try to do them for all these live explorations, but there will be movies I do that I don't do a live show for, or at least not at the time. And I do want to kind of do watch along. I consider them watch alongs, but you can't quite do that on YouTube. You have to do it in this reaction video format where it's all chopped up and the focus is on the person and not, you know, the movie, because it has to be. Understandably, honestly, if people could just film themselves watching a movie and you watch the full movie, you could be, I see why. So, you know, I can't even fault it, but that's just what the format you have to do. But generally, yeah, I'm not a reaction video guy, but I think if you do it right, you know, it's good. Most people don't do it right, even the big channels. But good to hear that. Keep an eye out for that, because I probably will at some point. And like I said, I'll have one for The Way of Water. It got me multiple times. I'd say it broke me. And a couple other films other than that. I'm going to do one to Terminator 2, because I never got a chance to do. Actually, you know, the Terminator, The Abyss, Aliens, I haven't done them to that, because I decided to do this later on. But I will be doing those films at some point, and other ones, including Prometheus.
Writing stage, you've got to love your characters, and then you've got to find the right actors to play those characters, and you've got to love your actors, and you've got to care about them, you know, and work with them and support them to do their very best work. I had a great working relationship with Kate and Leonardo on Titanic. I think, you know, for these young actors, where they were established. They had done some great work, but they had a lot of challenges on that film, and I'm proud of what we created together. You know, I'm proud of Kate having gone on to the stellar career that she's had. It was great for us to reunite and celebrate each other, you know, that we're now, you know, kind of 25 years down the line, we've made our bones in the business, you know, and we could relax and have fun. And it was a challenging role for her physically, right, because of the water and all that. But she loved that, you know, because she's the kind of actor that just loves a physical challenge or anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll be doing the whole franchise. I already did a live exploration on Aliens. Any one of these I could always return to, and I plan to, you know, in some regard. But yeah, you can expect every film in the franchise, the Alien franchise, a live exploration and a movie reaction, including Prometheus. Believe me, I'm excited for that. Even though I've spent a long time talking about it before, I can always talk about that. That movie just has an element to it that captures my mind. You know, the actual wonder of our existence, who created us, the engineers. I just love everything it flirts with, which is also why, you know, it'll endlessly torment me, because there's so many flaws in that movie, but there's also so much good. Maybe I have heard rumblings that Ridley Scott maybe will do a third one. If he does, I really hope he. But the problem is he's already ruined it. you know? He's already ruined it. The perfect setup, he ruined it in Alien Covenant. So even if he does a third one, it has to follow Alien Covenant. So it's like, I kind of want him to see what he does, but at the same time, he's already ruined it. It's frustrating beyond belief. He should just retcon in Covenant and do a different film. I'd be happy with that.
Do with dialect or language. I mean, it basically was everything for her, you know, because she loves the sound of dialect and the sound of language. She had to learn.
Yeah, it is exactly. It is too far gone. It's like the only true solution is to delete Covenant essentially and redo it, or what he was originally going to do. Bring back Elizabeth Shaw, Noomi Rapace, and David without his I'll do the fingering self, and do what he was originally going to do. There's a small sliver of chance that he could make it better than Covenant at least, but it's like it's already ruined, so I don't know. I still would be curious if he did a movie just focused on the engineers. That I'd be fine with that. You've already ruined that other storyline with Prometheus. Just like make a whole new thing. Get David out of it and all that other crap. Do the engineers, and you can still bring the aliens in, the xenomorphs. Just get rid of that whole storyline. I hate that.
Some Na'vi. She does a couple scenes in Na'vi. There's no reason for that, right? Because the conceit of the whole.
Yeah, the alien Earth. I don't know anything about that other than Alien on Earth. That will be, I don't know. The thing with the Alien franchise, it's like so easy to ruin it. Even Romulus, like I liked it because there's so much fan service. But that was just on my first viewing, you know, as you think about it and realize, let what you just watched soak in, you realize like the many flaws and how hollow it actually is, but there's enough fan service to make you enjoy it the first time, I think.
Movie is that everybody's speaking Na'vi, but we're hearing it in English, like a bunch of World War II Germans, you know, that all speak with English accents for some reason. You know, that's the conceit of the film. But when she does her kind of shamanistic practice, we went into Na'vi. Well, maybe it's an archaic form of Na'vi that's part of their ceremony or something like that. You know. Anyway, it was great working with her again.
Describe how her
Speaking of
arms
Kate
were
Winslet.
a little bit thicker around here so she could swim faster. The girth of the tail is wider so they can get through the water with greater speed. And I just appreciated all those little attentions that were paid to detail, and I couldn't wait. I just couldn't wait for all of it. And it certainly did, I think, impact on the stature, how I held myself, because I could see his intention for her, what her sort of aura was. And so I definitely was able to take a little bit of that from the visuals that I was shown and hopefully work it into the character.
It's interesting because that was my next question. She had a very specific way of moving. I don't even know if I would call it walking, but moving. How did you come up with that?
Well, there was a movement coach who worked with everybody, and that just helped me, I think, to feel confident with the movement, because you sort of you hold the head back and shoulders are back, but hips are forward, so they sort of lead with the kind of with the stomach and the pelvis, and it's a really interesting way of moving. But actually, Zoe also helped me too, because of course she's so Neytiri, she's so that world.
She is, yeah.
And it was wonderful, her sharing with me and learning from her, and she was so much a part of the voices and the creation of the movement in the early days.
And by the way, false and anybody watching, listening, to me the whole point of doing this is to explore movies together. But you know, that's the main thing. Explore movies together, not even necessarily what the topic is. Obviously the main topic is whatever the movie is, in this case The Way of Water, but it's not like, it's also, you know, us as a community just talking about movies, exploring them. So there could be a bunch of sidebars. You know, it's a little bit easier right now if this show, I don't know, I guess gets bigger. It'll be a little bit harder to keep track of that, but yeah, it's no problem going into sidebars and talking about something else. If it can somehow relate to the topic at hand, you know, even better. But I'm here to explore movies in general, man. That's it. That's what we're here for.
the first film, and so to have her experience and to listen and learn from her was really special.
So this year's the 25th anniversary of Titanic. When you look back, and now that you've worked with Jim again, this film is releasing on the 25th anniversary. How has he evolved as a filmmaker? And when you look back on that experience, how do you see it now? Like, what do you feel now when you look back?
I mean,
on
I
that?
think Jim as a filmmaker, I think he's evolved as a filmmaker because he's so much evolved as a person. I think I've hopefully evolved as an actor because I've also evolved as a person, and the things that we experience in our lives, but also through the work that we do and the directors and the actors that we work with, they change who we are and what we can bring into the room. And I look back on the experience of Titanic, and I of course remember how hard it was, how much we all stuck together, but also I really treasure the friendships that we made and the cast and the crew. Those are the things that when you can walk away from an experience and look back and remember the really, really great parts, and that for me is what I remember more than anything, is that sense of camaraderie and everyone looking out for each other. But my God, we were...
Oh, well, if you knew can I say this on air? I don't know. Hell, I've gone through with the Titanic reaction I'm doing. I really wish I would have known those 2 clips were going to pop up, because knowing them, they're going to claim this just because of that. I don't even want to get into it right now. Maybe later. But they're very protective of that property.
All together. I mean, Jim and I, we've laughed about things like, oh my God, do you remember how those hydraulics would break? And it would be these supposed tried and tested systems, and every night, something would break or change, and we'd have to wait 3 hours while it was getting fixed. And, it was, I look back at the kind of haphazard nature of which so many of those things were thrown together, and my goodness, it's a miracle it all came together in the end, but luckily it did.
You broke a record, which everybody's going to be talking about, for holding your breath underwater. Congratulations, 7 minutes, 20 seconds, I think.
7 minutes 14.
I was giving you a few extra.
You were embarrassing, that's okay.
What goes through your mind like minute 6? Does you get more
I
from
wasn't even aware, and actually when I
heard of that when it first came out, the different cast members and how long they could hold their breath. Her record, I don't even know if I could do a minute. Honestly, after 30 seconds, I'm already going, struggling. I have terrible lung capacity, apparently. And I'm not even a smoker, but 7 minutes, that is insane. James Cameron's dream woman, everyone. She can hold her breath underwater for 7 minutes. Yeah, I literally can barely make a minute too. It's crazy. I can't. That's something you definitely got to train for, and it's not natural to humans, because I can't even imagine that. If I can, I feel like I'm gonna die a minute. How you can do 6 more of that? Insane. Insane. She's a fish. I don't know. James Cameron's dream.
So the previous day, was it the previous day? Maybe 2 days previously, I had done a breath hold that was 6 minutes 14, and I was incredibly proud of myself. And so on that breath hold, I was really determined. That day, I tried to just, get my eating right, get my sort of temperament right, because you do have to calm your whole nervous system down. And actually, how you live, you start to live in certain ways that you know are going to maximize your physical ability and your lung capacity to be able to do it. So that day, I was just so quietly determined. And I said to my husband, who was there, I said, oh, please don't come today, because I know that Kirk's going to get me to do another breath hold, and I just really don't want to feel the pressure of you being there. And he was like, okay. But he snuck in. And so I actually have video footage of me coming up, which he was sneakily taking on his phone. So I come up and I go, am I dead? Am I dead? Have I died? Am I dead? Am I dead? And I say, how long was that? Straight away, I'm like, how long was that? I wanted to know right away. And Kirk said, how long do you think it was? And I said, I don't know. It could have been 6:10. It could have been 7:10. I've absolutely no idea. And when he told me it was 7:14, I just screamed. I just couldn't believe it. And I'm like, someone radio Jim and let them know. I just smashed my own record. So I was, very proud of myself. But I had no idea what was going on at minute 6. All I was thinking was, don't take a breath, don't take a breath. Just keep going, keep going. I was very proud of myself.
So what is her heart?
Look back at the kind of haphazard nature of which so many of those things were thrown together, and my goodness, it's a miracle.
Your reaction, but I'm really curious to know, because it seems like both you and Zoe are having such a deep, visceral experience with watching it. Can you sort of break down how you felt watching it and compare it to when you saw the first film?
I love the first film. It has an amazing story, and it introduces us to Natir's transition to being in Pandora, and at every level, technologically and emotionally, story-wise, it has you. It's like a big animal that grabs you and just holds you for 3 hours, and then lets you go. And I'm still assimilating the experience, because I'd never, I had hoped that Carrie would work, but it was a big risk that Jim took, and really that I took, and I was so delighted and relieved to see that Carrie is the special character we wanted to create.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because the last time we spoke about this, I hadn't seen the film, and you talked about Carrie being very special. She is so unique her movements. She's awkward in her movements. I want to know.
Yeah, she really is. Prime example is Aliens and always will be, but she was great in Avatar, and honestly, I think maybe even greater in The Way of Water, just because she had to play a teenage version of herself, and I would say she did it very successful. Her voice was a little weird sometimes, just because I think mainly we all know what Sigourney Weaver sounds like, and she's old now, so you kind of have to forget about that. But I'd say in terms of the acting, that her facial performances, her movements, she really got that down. And I know I'd seen something where Cameron had even said that, he worded it like, as soon as I said action, she turned into a teenager. And then when I said cut, she was Sigourney again at her current age. Yeah, I would agree with that. Facial performance and body language, 100%. It's hard to get past her voice, even though I know they modified it and she had was trying to do an accent. Just because I know how old she is really, and it still sounds deep, That was just like a mind thing mainly, I think. But performance-wise, yeah, she nailed it.
How you as an actress on set, like how you sort of got into her body and made her, and I think that was sort of a suggestion of yours maybe to make her feel a little more awkward and not so perfect.
Yes. When I saw the sketches of Kiri, she had a little band on her head, and she's very Natiri-like, very composed and pretty. And I said to Jim, I don't remember feeling like that. I would never have dreamed of being as pretty as my mother or as capable. I took a long time to sort of cook. So that period of time for me is very, very vivid, and I just felt like for a lot of women, a lot of girls, that's not a perfectly happy time. Of course, there are great moments of great happiness and fun, but there are also moments where you just want to disappear, and you just feel things are so unjust. And so I wanted that to be part of her story. I thought, how can it not be? Because of what happens to the family. She's pulled from this absolute.
Speaking of that, they allude to what that is, her connection, but I'm very curious on ultimately what that is with her character and like Awa and all that. Because she clearly has a connection that no one else has. Like, she can connect into it and, like, control the creatures to a bigger extent than, Jake Sully, who did it. And, like, later on something happens, she can, like, connect. And at the time, literally, she, like, pushes the plants to, like, grab people and stuff. So I'm very curious where that leads.
Wonderland, this golden childhood into this new world, and loses her best friend, and so I just felt like it was a complicated time for all of them, but especially for someone who's an adolescent.
How did you develop those movements of her? But was that something that just sort of came? Did you work on that a lot?
Well, I did, because luckily the film kept being the shooting kept being postponed. So I realized.
Duh.
Sorry, I just starting to run out of time here and try to not keep these ridiculously long, because I could just keep doing it forever. I got to cut it off at some point, but yeah, I'm hoping too. World building is what Avatar is all about. I mean, it's world building on a scale that hasn't really been done CGI wise to this scale. You could argue things like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. I mean, yeah, CGI. The prequels are a little different because there's way more CGI in those, but I'm thinking of the original Star Wars. Practically, I think Lord of the Rings has world building on a scale that's amazing, and I don't think can be topped. The Hobbit didn't even top it, because I don't know. That's a whole nother discussion, Hobbit versus the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But I think in terms of CGI and engulfing you like Avatar does, world building is what it's all about. And I don't think anything touches it in terms of how it takes you there and makes it believable. Insane world building. And it's world building, and I think this is true of Lord of the Rings too. I'm a big fan of all the extended versions for this reason. Any film that world builds, I want to be in it as long as I can. So that's why I like the extended, just like Avatar. If you successfully world build, I don't care if it's a 10-minute shot of just the environment, Good world building, score, all of it. I want it all. So I'm not someone who's like, oh yeah, but the theatrical moves better and it flows. Like, I don't care about that if it's world building. I want as much. I don't care if it's 10 minutes, slow camera, dolly in, I want it all. There is no, it flows better. It's not that type of movie.
You know,
I hope you're not saying that to me right now.
No, no.
Okay, I'm just the messenger.
But anyway, it was when I suspected all along that it had something to do with my DNA. You know, knowing RDA the way I do,
No, you were gonna come back from the dead as a zombie. Either that or you somehow survived 2 gigantic arrows to the chest.
that, you know, of course they'd bank my DNA. Look, Quaritch represents, it's a calculation, it's a cold equation to them, that I'm an investment to them, and it costs them 0 to bank the DNA. And if
really?
they run the numbers and say, is it worth it bringing this guy back? You know, he did a pretty good job until things went south on him, but that's really not entirely
like pretty
his fault,
amazing
although some of
technology,
it's
if you
his
ask
fault.
me.
Anyway, yeah, let's bring
Treat
Son
it
of a Gun back and send him up there
yeah.
again, and
Of course
you
we
know,
do that.
see if we can get this thing solved.
You just played a whole new character.
I know, that's an RDA, some wonky RDA, some business dude, right there. And I think that I think it was as simple as that.
Yeah.
The decision.
So you get the big and blue treatment in this film. And I was watching your character wondering, what is Quaritch feeling? Because he always wants to be bigger than he is, right? And now he physically is. So what does that do for you as an actor when all of a sudden you're playing this character? Like, how did it inform how he moved, how he talked in this film versus the last one?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing you say he always wants to be bigger. I'd have to examine, I'm going to accept it as maybe it's true. He wants to be as big as he possibly can. He takes up a lot of space, Quaritch. He tends to dominate the room, even if he's not saying anything, just his presence. You know, he's a true leader in that way, and that's the strength, and I think it's one of the things that people kind of respond to in him. And of course, when he becomes an avatar, he's learned some lessons. He's not a stupid man by any means. And if he, by being one way, it ended up with 2 arrows in his chest, maybe it's time to make an adjustment in how he is dealing with the environment and with the denizens of that environment.
If there's one thing that's very powerful, just look at Joker as an example, and there's a bunch of examples, but anti-heroes, especially ones that grow, it's a very powerful tool. So you can expect him to become an anti-hero and become likable and one of the good guys. And is that what is that called? I always have these brain fart moments. Is that it's not unexpected for that to happen, but it's very satisfying. It's one of the most satisfying things I think a character can do, is to be kind of an anti-hero or somebody who's done bad things but redeems himself. I fully expect that to happen with his character. And he's done some, honestly, like, he didn't kill Nataeum, but maybe he led to it. I don't know. So far the stuff he's done isn't quite so irredeemable. Like, if he actually killed, which I'm sure why that was done, if he actually killed one of his Sully's kids, he would never get to that level with him. Or if he did, it would be false. But I fully expect him to become, you know, kind of an anti-hero, one of the good guys. But yeah, he's an interesting character. He's entertaining to watch. That's, again, why I don't mind that they brought him back, even though it is really goofy. And I would actually like for his character to do that. Like, that's kind of what you want to happen. It's satisfying for it to happen. So why not let it happen? It's expected, maybe, but who cares? If it's done right, it doesn't matter. If anything, that's what you want. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, a whole nother can of worms. That show is known for being like, oh my god, you know, they did this. That's not expected. They killed off all the main characters. Or the ones you were rooting for, the Red Wedding. But then they took that to an extreme with the last season. They just destroyed it. Like, on some level, you can do that to revert expectations, but it's like the people want what the people want at the end of the day. Like, you can only do that. That was an example of going too far, I think. They destroyed that show. And just another sidebar, they could have done that if they expanded it more. It was like, the show was built on, you know, season after season of moving at a glacial pace, but like, it was satisfying. You're getting to know all these characters. And then the last season, they just fast forwarded everything, and when you have the rest of the seasons to compare to, it felt terrible to have it go like that. Like, it just made no sense. they were building to this thing that they just destroyed because they're like, well, if we can't do that, it's a happy ending. People are expecting that, so we're going to go the other way. It's just stupid. That's an example of it going the wrong way too far.
I think he becomes, pretty adept at doing that. We see him starting on the journey.
I don't expect that to happen with his character, because if one thing we know Cameron knows is what audiences want, what will satisfy the audience. Him becoming an anti-hero will satisfy the audience. It's no surprises there.
Going a long way in Avatar: Way of Water. He's adapting to the to Pandora rather than trying to make Pandora adapt to him.
Speaking of adapting, in the last one you're human, in this one you're doing a lot of mocap. Compare for me as an actor, being in the mocap working opposite humans versus being a human working opposite mocap. How do you compare that? Did I just blow your mind?
yeah, I'm trying to, look, performance capture is, it's challenging. Working, and I will tell you that working in performance capture working with live action human, it's difficult because of scale, because you're dealing,
Yeah, that's another thing. They fumbled their Star Wars deal. They just destroyed their careers, I think. I mean, what else have they even done since then? They're kind of toxic right now. They, on some level, like, they had a lot of pressure, you know. They were knocking it out of the park season after season. All right, we're going to end it now. You have all this budget, and they just fumbled it. I don't know. That sucks. But I'm sure they're still rich, so they're all right.
Understand that if I'm acting in a scene, say with Edie Falco, who plays General Ardmore in this, she's a human in this, and I'm an Avatar.
And then speaking of Star Wars, episode 7, 8, 9, sidebar after sidebar. 7 was a clone of A New Hope. I still enjoyed it. 2 was kind of weird. I like Adam Driver. Didn't really like the film. 3, I kind of like Palpatine, but it was absolutely terrible the way they took the story. I will admit, seeing Adam Driver become good was kind of terrible, but I kind of wanted it at the same time. Is what it is. The Mandalorian, I watched the first season, thought it was great. I haven't seen anything else. All these other shows, I just keep hearing terrible things about them. Haven't given any of them a chance, so I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think the key thing to take away from that, they've turned that whole thing into content instead of stories, and that's the death of it. Maybe they can get away from it at some point, but right now it's just content, which is trash. There's like nothing special about it, no value in it. It's just content for streaming.
Well, if Edie and I are standing next to each other acting, and I'm supposed to be looking at her,
I heard Andor is good, so I'll definitely have to check that out. And I did like, movie-wise, what is the one with? Oh my God, I'm not a huge Star Wars guy, so I'm blanking on the name. Rogue One. I did like that one.
I really have to look down at her kneecap in order to make eye contact with her.
Yeah, Rogue One.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? It's
really
like because
that
the
one.
scale is, because I'm actually, 14 or 12 feet tall. And so that, I know this is kind of a little wacky to talk about. It's hard to talk about. And when we're on set and Jim is kind of figuring it out, too, it can get a little like, so where do you want me to look? Okay. So that's challenging. That's just flat out technically challenging and be difficult to do. But that's the circumstances we work under, and you have no alternative but to make it into a positive.
Right.
We go to Hawaii, and for me personally, at that time, I've never been out of the States.
So
I've barely been on the West Coast,
some of the
being
kids,
from New York. So being able to go to
Zoe
Hawaii,
Sam,
which feels like its own place outside of anywhere, like just its own island, which it literally, is. And because of that, we were able to immerse
I actually knew that.
ourselves.
The
Even
guy,
like
the same
feeling,
guy that made
Jim would
Rogue
be like,
One,
feel the sand, feel the creatures around you, the reefs, being able to scuba dive and go deep into the water. All of that really helped.
Edwards?
You never forget those
Is that his
moments,
name?
even as just a regular person not doing acting in a volume, but to be able to have that and then go into the volume just expanded the whole acting process.
I think James must be the ultimate camp counselor in a sense. He's like the ultimate tour guide. I was wondering for you guys, when you see yourselves, given the big and blue treatment, do you see yourselves or do you see a different character? Like when you watch yourselves and saw yourselves for the first time, is it like, oh, that's me? Or do you feel like you're watching something outside yourself?
We've talked about this.
I like, this is the show of sidebars. One thing that's funny about Rogue One to me is Forrest Whitaker's character. In the trailers, they made him out to be some epic, like, what will you become? Like, they made it so cool. And then in the movie, his character's like so small and barely does anything.
Because I personally, as an actor, love like transcendent quality of acting, and if you go into a cinema and don't have to look at yourself, then that's extremely forgiving and kind of everything why I like to do it, to experience something outside of yourself.
Yeah, well, it's the same with any character I play. If I don't see myself, I did a good job. So I see Bailey like that. Those are my dimples. Those are my teeth. My cheekbones added to the shape of Saraya. So it is my body the same way it is when I do live action. But if we did our jobs as actors, which I really feel we did, we shouldn't feel ourselves. And
Continue going. This is like a.
No, I was on such a good roll, and you just had to be self-deprecating. He does a great job. That's how you know he did a great job, because he's being self-deprecating, and that's a fact.
God, that's horrible then. So maybe self-deprecation is just like a reevaluation for me to get a compliment.
Yeah.
Another interesting is they had a jump in The Way of Water, but there's going to be another jump for the age of the kids. I think in either 4 or 5. So I'm kind of interested in how that's going to go in terms of these actors. Yeah, I thought so too. The kids were good. No complaints with any of them. Especially, I'm forgetting this girl's name. I don't know if it's Bailey or... I thought her character, one of the water people, was good.
And calm, and as a Avatar family, we have that that kind of familiarity and trust in each other to then be operatic in what these scenes demand, and be challenging and primal, and take it to that, up the ante a bit on what these scenes can do.
Absolutely.
But you have to have that balance.
Yeah. And but also, like, I'm going to talk about you like you're not here. Like, Sam is not an entitled person. He doesn't get in his own way. He's like a true artist. He allows the process to take over. And he just makes it feel so safe for everybody. There's no ego when you work with Sam. So he's a giver and not a taker. So that compels you to always have his back as he has yours. And I think that we bonded because we were like these kids getting this unimaginable opportunity back in 2006. I mean, he chose us out of like thousands of people that they had sent tapes of. And he felt that, Sam was his Jake and then I was his Neytiri. There was no chance in hell that we were going to take that for granted. I do look up to Sam. Like, there's a level of humility to his character as an artist, as a person too. And that every time I feel a little wobbly, that's kind of like reassuring. So getting to go back to that, and then but you have someone like Jim that is setting such a powerful tone of respect and camaraderie and collaboration, but also of excellence, that it just trickles down to each and every one of us too.
The way of water connects all things.
Damn you. All right. Well, on that note, let me well, after a million sidebars, I thought we were getting some good stuff there. The Way of Water, it's a really amazing film that I don't know if it really got its due credit. I can't gauge that in terms of, like I said, in my mind, it's a better film than Avatar. The box office doesn't show that to the same extent, but like, that doesn't matter. Like I said, that's almost an impossible feat for it to do that, because it didn't have the, oh my god, we haven't seen this on this scale before, like Avatar did. And like kind of the grand epic, like, have you seen it yet? Have you seen it? That film was. It's more of just like, hey, it's the sequel to that film. So the fact that it even got to number 3 is amazing. But better film in every way, in my mind. More satisfying. I think you feel more complete after watching it. You care more about the characters. You want to see what else is going to happen. all very effective. Cameron did not let anybody down in making the sequel. His track record wasn't pointing to that anyway. The opposite. And he achieved that. I don't know anyone who, like, you know, has the... It's literally historic. Nobody has the record that he has, both in terms of box office and just the quality of the work. I don't know what that is. Like I said, he's got the whale secret brain goo that we need to drill out of his head. I don't know. If you haven't seen The Way of Water for some reason, or you haven't seen it in a while, like even I hadn't since it came out, watch it again. I guarantee you'll have a good time. You'll enjoy it. Maybe you'll care about the environment. You want to save the earth. I don't know. That's what Cameron wants. I think the majority of people, hey, do you want to save the earth and not have it burn up? Yeah, I think everyone would agree to that. It's just a matter of what are we going to do about it. It's kind of hard for everyone to... I'm going to go on a boat right now and clean up the oceans. Should that be done? Yeah. There's no easy answer, but yeah, I think most people want to save the earth. Why would you not? No, I want it to burn. I just want to see the world burn. So it's a good message. One of the more important ones, but it's also one that I think people can already realize for themselves. You know, you can get in the whole climate change debacle. To me, it's always been simple. It's a naturally occurring phenomenon that we're making worse. I don't know why that's such a hard thing to understand. It's naturally occurring. Look out through Earth's history. You'll see that. And we're making it worse. So maybe we should work to not making it worse and shielding ourselves from the impending downsides to that. Both in terms of what we're doing to the environment, and maybe we should go to Mars like Elon wants, because it's just better, isn't it? To have a second option in case this one goes to hell, which millions of years, billions of years from now it's going to, no matter what we do. Yeah, I'd say so. So environment is pretty important. This film is a showcase for that. It actually showcases that I'd rather live on Pandora than Earth for many reasons. So there's that. James Cameron is a historical, epic filmmaker who will be getting his own live exploration from me next week. He deserves it. Be going over everything as a whole, including his 2 documentaries, Aliens of the Deep and Ghosts of the Abyss, which granted I need to watch myself. I haven't seen them since they came out and I was a kid, and I saw it in theaters. Haven't seen it since. I don't even remember anything that happens in either of those films other than James Cameron like looking out of a window from a submarine and Bill Paxton. I have yet to see Piranha 2. I need to watch that. Other than that, I'm pretty caught up on Cameron. I didn't really need this to do that, but it did get me to watch them back to back to back, which has been amazing. I've loved every minute of it. And that's what we'll be talking about next week. James Cameron, a career retrospective. And in preparation for that, I've been doing movie watch-alongs, but because I can't really do that for a director, I'm going to be doing a video essay on James Cameron. You can expect that hopefully next week. I don't know if it'll be before or after. But it'll allow me to go and it'll allow me to show things in a way that I can't do live, more in depth, in a certain regard, and just presented differently in essay format. So you can expect that. The reaction to Way of Water will be coming out probably tomorrow, assuming I don't have any problems with it. Yeah. James Cameron's a crazy man who wants to film underwater. You got to have that though. I mean, that's part of his secret sauce. Is he just has that. Like I said, most people wouldn't do stuff like that, but he would, and it shows why that's special in his products. But so you can expect that. You can expect more video essays down the line. You can expect more movie reactions down the line, and more live explorations. I probably will take a 2 to 3 week break from the live shows, just because, believe it or not, it takes a lot of work to do that, especially trying to cram reactions in, movie skits, which I didn't do for this one for a number of reasons. I'm not going to do it for every one of them. Part of that is like I was starting to get away from what this was kind of supposed to be and just putting too much stake in like I got to get this done before the thing. And I don't want to force that. I only want to do it if I feel it natural. And especially at this level, I wasn't feeling that for The Way of Water. I could have done the sequel to what I did last week, but it wasn't right. But like I said, I can always revisit it. I can always come back to these movies. I most likely will for a number of them in the future. So you can expect that. So yeah, you can expect some video essays, more live shows, and movie reactions, whether or not I do a live show to them. And the live shows will be scheduled. You'll see that. I probably, after the break, will do a couple independent ones. Maybe on Prometheus. I don't know. I've got a couple things I could do. Probably not Prometheus. That one's too special for me. I really need to prepare for that one. But yeah, probably 2, 3, 4 independent ones, and then I'm going to get back onto a saga. What filmmaker will that be? I don't know. You'll have to stay tuned to see who I'm going to be saga-ing next. But yeah, this has been fun. Thank you all for joining me. False, I really appreciate you being here, chiming in. I'm jealous of your Prometheus ampule. I want one. I hope you join me next week and check out some of my other stuff. Have I ever watched Raised by Wolves? Ridley Scott directed the first 3 episodes, and no, I haven't seen it. It's close to even Prometheus. Feel that. No, but yeah, you saying that, I definitely will. You know what? That name does sound familiar to me now, but I have not seen it, so I definitely will check that out. Thanks for mentioning it. And well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yes, that would be awesome. It's been great having you here. I love your input. Never be afraid to chime that in, even if it's completely off topic. I'm no stranger to that. Matter of fact, I'm a victim of it, and I can't help it. But yeah, this show has been great. Avatar: The Way of Water. I love the film. You can see in the reaction how much I do and how much it affects me if you check that out when it comes out. Having said all that, I'll see you next week, and I guess there's only one thing left to say. Besides James Cameron, I want your brain goo.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?